Okay, so welcome to How to Meditate. And sorry, I'm not too familiar with leading a class where I'm going to ask questions on Zoom. So it might take me a little bit while to get used to the tech because I will ask questions from time to time, or at least to raise hands, something like that. So anyway, I'll get familiar with it over the next week or two. Anyway, I'm at Vajrapani Institute now. You can see a little bit in the background there. Sorry, it's just the door. It just so happens where I was seated, but here's a little bit of our beautiful altar. I don't know, it's probably, there we go. You get a little bit nice view of the altar here at Vajrapani. And just take you a short guided tour of the Gompa as far as it can go while I'm sitting here. That's our Lama altar over there as well. So just to give a little bit blessing of the altar before we start the class. Anyway, for those of you who I haven't met before, there's a few of you. As you saw on the programme, my name's Angie. I'm from Scotland, so I have an unusual accent, dialect. I hope it's not going to be too much of a problem for anyone. It might take you just a few minutes or a few sessions to get really used to the accent, but hopefully you'll be able to gather enough from, enough in from what I'm saying. And I'm living right now at Vajrapani Institute. I've been here the last 7 months. And previously, I mean, I've lived in America now for 20 years, but I haven't lost the Scottish accent. So previously I lived at Lama Zopa Rinpoche's house for some 7 years, and some other centres in the past as well, including Rinpoche's other house in Washington. So I've been quite fortunate to have a sort of broad view of the FPMT and the broad view of the different centres in the organisation. And I have taught a little bit in the past. Mainly, my preference is to kind of lead practices in meditation. I wouldn't say I'm very proficient in teaching, but I do enjoy leading practice in meditation. So I'm quite happy that I'm doing the How to Meditate module with you, and hopefully you'll be able to get something from this for your practice, for your daily practice, or for those of you who still haven't got one, to be able to develop daily practice or deepen more your daily practice with what we go through in this class. Can I just ask how many of you attended the first module, How to Meditate with Venerable Yonten? Put up your hands, or do you press, can see there, I'm just going to skim, I'm going to have a different view, the grid view, I think. Gallery view, let me see. I can see everyone better there. Good. So if you put up your hand, I can just, sorry, one more time again. Quite a few of you there have attended the first module. Yeah, that's good. And can I ask as well, how many of you have a sort of daily practice already and are just kind of more interested to deepen that? A daily either more meditation practice? A few of you do. Yeah. And how many of us haven't got one but would like one? A few hands there too, yes. I mean, I'm imagining most of us are here for the reason, obviously we're going through the Discovering Buddhism modules, so you're getting a deeper understanding of Buddhism in general. But hopefully, you know, through doing this practice and module, you'll be able to, as I say, either deepen your practice or be able to start some kind of morning meditation practice. So I'm going to change the view now to here. Anyway, welcome again. So let's just start, just going to start tonight, just with a very short few minutes of meditation just to connect with our breathing and our body and to generate our motivation. And then as we go through, I want to do about 45 minutes to an hour of talking, teaching, discussing about meditation. And then we're going to finish the class with another meditation again, because this module is about meditation. Rather than doing too much talking and teaching. I want to be able to introduce you to the fundamentals of meditation and to be able to go in this module through different types of meditation and actually do them and experience them in each class. So for now, just to begin with, before we begin some of the materials, we just do a very short kind of grounding ourselves in our body and our breath and clarifying our motivation. So let's just take a couple of minutes. Each time we go into meditation, we have to try and bring our awareness first to the body. That's a kind of grosser, heavier part of ourselves. So we do a very short body scan, bringing our awareness. And as we do a body scan, just, connecting with our posture, just bringing our awareness up the crown of our head. And breathe into the crown, breathe in, inhale, exhale. If you want to breathe a little bit more deeply, not straining the breath too much, but just a little bit more of a deeper inhalation into the belly and exhalation out through both nostrils. But awareness at the crown. And we're going to use the softness of the breath and awareness just to go through the body, through the brow, the eyes, the neck, a few breaths just in the head area, just inhaling, using breath and awareness to soften and release any tension that we find as we sort of scan through the top down to the sort of neck area, around the head area. It's like massaging with breath and awareness our body. Down through the shoulders, just set the shoulders a little bit back, not in a strained way, but just bring them back and over. A couple of breaths into the shoulders, around the chest. Inhale, and use the space between the inhalation and exhalation, that space just to allow that to flow into the body and release and relax any tension, and then exhale that tension on the out breath. And down through the front of the chest into the stomach area. 2 or 3 breaths, inhaling, space, bringing that space and softness into the body, into the chest, into the stomach, and release and relax any tension on the out breath. Similarly, from the back of the neck down through the back and the spine, just correcting our spine, our posture, straightening up the spine in a kind of firm way, but a comfortable way, not tense. Again, inhaling, using the space between inhalation and exhalation, allowing that to go through the body, correcting our posture, and exhaling tension. Anything unwanted, unnecessary for a practice in meditation. And then to the hips. 2 or 3 breaths around each hip. And just, again, fixing our kind of posture around the legs, So main thing is that legs support the upper body to be straight, kind of like an arrow, straight up and down. That's how we want the top part of the body. As we're in the area of the hips, take a few breaths just to be aware of the sensation of the buttocks on the cushion on your seat, wherever you are, just to help ground our energy, again in our body. Soften, release, and relax. And that space between the in and the out breath, using that to soften, release, and relax. But again, having a firmness, a vitality to the body. We need that for meditation. And bring the last few breaths all the way through down the legs, into the feet. Again, just searching with awareness for any tension. And bringing softness, vitality, but vitality and clarity to that area with breath and awareness. Now that we're a little bit more grounded in the body and the body's more open and relaxed, let's just take a minute just to be with the breath, the inhalation and exhalation at the tip of the nostrils. Just breathing normally. Try to just have our mind become one, to just be one with the breath for the next minute. So letting go of our awareness on the breath or coming back from wherever we are in our thoughts. Just for a moment, try to place our mind in our motivation for the class, for this class, for the series of classes. So if we think about why we joined the class, take a moment to see what arises in your mind. When you ask yourself that question, what was our sort of main factor, main motivating factor or reason for coming to the class? Just clarify that in your own way. So on top of our own motivation, what we're trying to do as we learn to meditate and deepen our meditation practice, really what it is a process of transforming our motivation for life, you know. As we go deeper and deeper into different types of meditation, what we're doing is transforming our life, our hearts and minds, into the two wings of bodhicitta, or good heart, and the wing of wisdom, you know, these two wings that we need for full development of our heart and mind. So as we go through these classes, how to meditate, and the different other modules in Discovering Buddhism, what we're trying to do is transform our mind into these two main aspects in the Buddhist path. Good heart, working up to this awakening mind of bodhicitta, and also developing our wisdom so that we know the correct way to benefit ourselves and others. So in a basic way, we can just motivate that by listening tonight, reflecting on the teachings and meditating, may not just guide my mind on the path to enlightenment, but eventually it may bring about my ability to guide and help others to the path of happiness. Not just temporary happiness, but everlasting peace and happiness. In a nutshell, may my meditation always sort of guide me, help me to develop and grow so I can be more beneficial in this world. It's kind of the main point of our meditation practice, to develop our mind to benefit others. It's the essence of the Mahayana tradition that we're studying, the great vehicle of Buddhism, developing this awakening mind of bodhicitta. So we try to always start with that motivation. A motivation encompassing all living beings and their happiness up to enlightenment. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen with the topics and subjects I'm going to go through this evening. Okay, good. So in a nutshell this evening, or at least part of this evening, we'll try our best to go through some of these topics, you know, starting really from the basics of why we meditate. You know, always have to, you know, whether we're a beginner or a seasoned practitioner, we always have to think about why we're meditating, you know, what's the purpose of our meditation, going back again and again to have this beginner's mind, you know, and really start with the basics. Everything we do in life is a motivation, you know, so it's a background motivation. So the more and more we're clear on that, the more and more we can help others, you know, if we have always having a clarity of our motivation, and ideally it's, of course, a positive motivation to benefit ourselves and others. So that's really what we're trying to always develop and transform in our spiritual practice, you know. But so now, you know, again, just from the perspective of what we've just studied in module 1 and where we're going in the following modules, you know, getting a broader view of why we meditate, and also going over the goal or the aim of meditation. Different types of meditations have different aims or goals, but just generally what our goal is. And what do we mean by meditation? You know, what's the definition of meditation? And also this evening, as I just touched on now in this practice, we went over the posture, just in a very general way, but we'll start to identify, and some of us might be very aware of the posture already, but just, you know, clarifying for those of us who are already aware, reminding ourselves, and then helping others who need a little bit more help to develop your posture. Because posture becomes very important in the type to help the quality of meditation that we're going to have. So we start with why we meditate. Why meditate? Sorry, I'm just going to move this grid around so that I can see. Okay, there we are. Bear with me. So anyway, Urs, you may recognize this slide. I did an Essence of Tibetan Buddhism class for for Ocean of Compassion, and I used this slide actually at the very beginning as well. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche was my main kind, most precious kind main teacher, as he was for some of you here as well. So I always like to try and introduce Rinpoche by quoting some of Rinpoche's, essential teachings on mind and meditation, or mind and the happiness, So, really, basically why we meditate, is what we discover. Some of us have kind of discovered it already. Some of us are still discovering that as we begin these modules and work through the different modules. But what the Buddha taught, essentially was that happiness and suffering are dependent on our mind, upon how we interpret things, how we use and utilize our mind, what we think and feel in the mind. They don't come from outside, from others. All our happiness and all our suffering is created by our own mind. So again, Venerable Yonten, in Mind and Its Potential, we started to touch upon the essence of that in the beginning module. And this is what, through listening to teachings, through reflecting and meditating, this is what we start to discover more and more in our spiritual practice. This is the essence of what our personal discovery needs to be, that basically if we all want happiness. The foundation of every living being, every being is motivated by happiness. So what the Buddha taught is that basically, unless we can work with our own mind and learn to develop our mind and heart in the causes of happiness, through cultivating actions with our body, speech, and mind that create happiness, happiness will always evade us. So why meditate, Well, meditation's it's the main form where we can recognize our mind and recognize our suffering, recognize how different types of suffering come up in the mind, and how through using the mind and using meditation, we can transform our mind into the causes of happiness. So from Lama Yeshe, Buddhism always talks about suffering. This turns some Westerners off. We're happy, we're not suffering. What's our problem? Why should we listen to teachings on suffering? We've all heard it. I mean, Buddhism's very famous now. I see lots of jokes on Facebook and on social media about suffering in Buddhism, so I think so many people know about that. It's sort of common knowledge now. But, as Lama says, if you check within yourself, whether you're rich or poor, famous or unknown, there's a level of dissatisfaction, a kind of uncontrollable, ever-changing energy of dislike that's going on in our mind, Feelings of kind of sometimes happiness, sometimes aversion, sometimes indifference. But so all of these feelings, the Buddha recognized were all different types of feelings. Even temporary happiness, the Buddha taught, it's not everlasting peace and happiness. So in order to really be able to discover and kind of awaken the causes of happiness in our mind, we need to be able to look within. We need to be able to develop some kind of art or ability to meditate and contemplate. So one of my friends who, when he was quite new to Buddhism, he went to, I think I mentioned this story, Urs, in the last class as well. He said that he went to a teaching. He was relatively new, and I think many of the students were relatively new to Buddhism. So he went to a teaching on the Four Noble Truths. And of course, when you receive a teaching on the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha talks predominantly about suffering, the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path, the path that frees us from suffering. So one of the students put up his hand and asked, why is there so much talk about suffering? And the Lama said, well, if you were happy, you wouldn't be here. So actually, that's quite profound, So it touches something. It's almost like when we go to the doctor and we kind of feel that something's wrong with him, something's not right. And then he starts listing all these things that are wrong with us. And it almost feels like it's too much, Well, I sort of came here because I was feeling not that great, but I didn't realize I had all these different things going on with me. And we almost start to develop an aversion because we don't want to hear the truth, you know? So it can be a little bit like that, you know, when we hear these teachings on suffering. But nonetheless, so what happens is instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, what we want to do is sort of investigate, at least start to investigate what the Buddha taught. And that's the kind of mind or curiosity we need to develop in our meditation, an investigative mind, you know, to really look in our mind and see what's happening. It's not a numbing of the senses. It's not emptying thoughts. It's really becoming like one of my friends also, when he was going into retreat, he was, you know, it was about 20 years ago when Lama Zopa Rinpoche was still with us, and he was entering into a 6-month retreat. And Rinpoche gave him the advice in retreat to be like a scientist, you know, to kind of go in and investigate your mind and see what's happening there, you know. So not so much like get into some state of bliss and tell me all about your bliss and what's going on. It was like, no, really investigate your mind, obviously using the tools that the Buddha taught, the tools of meditation. So we have to kind of develop this honesty with ourselves, you know, in our meditation, to be able to look at our mind and use meditation as a mirror, use the teachings that we listen to, we hear that affect our mind as a mirror in our meditation practice, and see if this is true for us, you know, and see how we can use meditation to develop and transform our minds into the teachings that we hear, you know. So another reason we meditate is, yes, to discover what the Buddha taught, you know, about suffering, about the dissatisfaction in our mind, to see that, to work on that. But he also taught, you know, this is why we why we meditate is because it's the way to realize the nature of mind. So the ultimate nature of our mind, as some of you have probably heard in the teachings, is the nature of emptiness, you know, or a sort of deep interconnectedness that we have with all phenomena and all living beings, a dependent relationship that we have with all living beings. So we do feel some connectedness with others. We do sometimes feel like our mind has this pure, clear nature, but it's not something consistent. It's not something we're experiencing day to day, moment to moment. So the main method to achieve everlasting peace and happiness is to develop our wisdom and to realize the nature of mind or consciousness, this potential that our mind has to be liberated from all problems, all suffering, and all dissatisfaction altogether. Meditation is going to the root of whatever it is that's causing us to be unhappy and unpeaceful. Because unless we work on the root of that, the cause of unhappiness, restlessness, and stress is always there in the mind, and it's not being dealt with. Then we keep facing the same problems again and again. So just think about that for a moment. Think about for yourself, what is it that mainly disturbs your mind? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it desire? Is there one main factor, one main sort of delusion, as we call it, that you were introduced to, or some of us are very familiar with delusions in the mind and potential module? Take a moment to think about that. Is there one main issue in your mind that's recurring, you know, and that's hard to work on? It's kind of tough, you know. It's like a rock. So when I was new to I was very new in my spiritual practice. And so again, when we're new, sometimes it's difficult to see these different aspects in our mind. It can be hard to see what's the strongest delusion or challenge in the mind. So when I was very new, I always thought my main problem was attachment. You know, I was a new nun. And of course, as a monastic, we're trying to reduce attachment. So I thought, well, that must be my main problem, you know, is attachment. Most of the vows for a monastic are around, you know, like no alcohol, celibacy, no stealing. And then there's all these other kind of periphery vows that help us to work with attachment. So I just assumed, because, obviously I was taking the vows to kind of reduce my attachment. That was one of the reasons. So I assumed that my main problem was attachment. And so one day, again, I was very fortunate to be in the presence of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And it's true that I had been having some problems with someone that I was living with. And I wouldn't call myself an extremely angry person. It's not that I get angry and start shouting at someone, and completely lose control that way. But I would say that there were certain individuals that I was living with at the time that were irritating me, So anyway, I had the fortune one day to have an appointment with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and he basically told me point blank that the main thing I had to work on right now was my anger. And I was like, really? I was kind of surprised, because I thought it was attachment. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't have attachment. But what happens is, as we first go into the spiritual practice, it can be quite good to really kind of investigate, not in a heavy way, not beating ourselves up, but what thing day to day, what state of mind day to day is mainly disturbing my mind? Is it anger? Is it pride? Is it attachment? And I strongly cling to someone or something, and that kind of creates anxiety or fear or difficulty in my mind. What is that? Then when we can identify that, we can start to use meditation to reduce that state of mind. Because basically, it's like you go to the doctor and you have various things wrong with you. The first thing they're going to work on is the thing that's heaviest for you, that's causing the most problem. So similarly, in a meditation, what we want to start to deal with really is what's creating the most unpeacefulness, the most restlessness, the most stress in my mind. Even if we've got stress, where is that stress coming from? What's causing it? It's usually one of the main delusions of pride or anger, or often it comes from attachment, So again, in our meditation, we want to try and investigate, and not way of feeling beating ourselves up, but just almost like an observer, observing our mind and seeing what's going on here. So the more we meditate, the more we have a meditation practice, the more we'll be able to develop that mindfulness, not just in our practice, but in our daily life, and bring whatever we've learned in our meditation or the tools in our meditation to our daily life, day to day, moment to moment. So meditation is a little bit like, instead of saying meditation, we almost have to call it medication. Meditation is medication. It really is. It's a medication for the mind, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. Our minds they're not peaceful all the time. There's certain factors or delusions, difficulties in the mind that we find hard to juggle with, hard to control. So we need a medication for that, and the medication is our meditation. When you can see the potential of the human mind, the innate beauty of human beings and humans' infinite possibilities, you begin to see the solution to any problem that might arise. Lama Yeshe, as most of you know, was the founder of FPMT, along with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But at the time when Lama was alive in the 70s and 80s, Lama Yeshe predominantly sort of managed and started the organization, whereas Lama Zopa Rinpoche was taking the aspect of being a very ascetic meditator. He wasn't so much involved in the day-to-day running and decision-making of the organization. He was very young, at that time still. So Lama kind of took the role of being the sort of father of our organization, the founding father who really, taught more extensively and guided and led the meditation and the organization. And he also had he did teach, quite extensively, but he had a very beautiful and succinct way of kind of grabbing our minds, with different topics, grabbing our attention and just giving us the essence of often quite complex topics in just a few words, in just a few lines. So one of the books that I've recommended for this course, and I think Isabella's kindly, sent it to you already, is Freedom Through Understanding. And some of these quotes from Lama Yeshe come from that book. So I would encourage you, if you have time during the course, just to kind of, chew away at that book. Just read a few pages here and there, because there's some very essential, simple, but very profound points that Lama talks about with meditation, you know, that's very inspiring. The way Lama talks, it's very inspiring, gives a lot of energy and inspiration. So, for example, here, you know, so in module 1, what we discovered is, you know, if we didn't know already, and, you know, personally, on a personal level, after, you know, 20-something years of meditating, it's something I always have to connect with on a daily basis, that my mind has the potential for everlasting peace and happiness. My mind has the potential to become Buddha, to awaken all the qualities of Buddha. Buddhism's not about a creator principle where some divine being created the world, he created us, and we can, you know, be kind of subject to God, but we can't reach the godly state. So in Buddhism, it's very much Buddha was the teacher. He was our inspiration. He was our sort of beautiful guide and light, you know, to bring us to the place where we can become one with Buddha. When we can fully develop the beautiful mind of compassion and bodhicitta, anyone we know who's kind-hearted, even never mind having bodhicitta, this great awakening mind that wants to, you know, benefit all living beings, just kind-hearted people have a beauty. Someone who's good, who's kind, even you see when someone's patient, their face develops, it has a beauty, you know, a softness to it. So like that, you know, we have the potential to be kind, but on top of that, to develop a mind that awakens to all living beings, you know, and sees all living beings as your precious mother, brother, sister, like your family, you know, and every being you can hold as precious, you know, very dear. We have that ability to develop our mind in that way. We have the ability to develop our mind in infinite wisdom, to be able to know and see all phenomena, our past lives, our future lives. You know, our mind has that potential, it has that ability, but we need to plant the seeds. We need to nourish the seeds. We need to develop the seeds into enlightenment. So that's where meditation becomes so important, because it's working continually and planting these seeds in our mind, you know, to slowly become closer to that inner Buddha state that we all have the potential to develop. Venerable Rubina uses a very nice, some of you might be familiar with Venerable Rubina. She's a very well-known teacher in the FPMT. She uses a very beautiful analogy of ourselves being like an acorn, you know, which has the potential to become an oak tree. So just like that, we have within us, because we have Buddha nature, ourselves, not just all humans, but animals, spirits, any sentient being who has mind, who has consciousness, has this Buddha nature that can awaken in all these infinite possibilities, wisdom and compassion, the awakening mind of bodhicitta. So every morning, it's very helpful to encourage ourselves in that way, to really feel, you know, in our meditation, start to begin and feel that we have these possibilities of awakening. Even if we're not going for the whole goal to enlightenment, but we have the potential to overcome anger. We have the potential to overcome attachment. We have the potential to develop bodhicitta and emptiness. That is absolutely within us. And that's what the purpose of meditation is. Each time we meditate, it's planting those seeds, you know, nourishing those seeds in our heart and mind to become, you know, this innate beauty of you know, the human mind, you know, to develop this mind of bodhicitta that we see in the great examples of, you know, maybe other friends or beings, you know, but certainly I saw that in the example of my teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. We see it in the example of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, you know, really connecting as we can in our meditation with this potential that we have to eventually be able to overcome all the problems, all the challenges, all the delusions in the mind. So that's just a very brief introduction to why we meditate. Few reasons why we meditate. I'm sure you can think of more. So the goal or aim of meditation. So sometimes I think as we enter into meditation, I think there can be quite a lot of misconceptions about what we think meditation is. Certainly myself, when I was new in India, I first did my first class, meditation class at Tishita in Dharamsala. And I didn't have a clue about meditation. I just assumed it was something to kind of, make the mind more peaceful. But I didn't have any idea how to meditate, how you do that. So on one level, that's true, we want to meditate to clear the mind. Many of us come with that initial motivation to just clear the mind, be a bit more peaceful. So certainly for the Mahayana tradition, well, first of all, we just want to look at, well, what meditation isn't, and then we're going to look at, well, what meditation is, moving into more what we should be doing, looking at, aiming for in our meditation. So what meditation isn't, what we want to be careful for when we move into a meditation practice, is not simply using it as a tool to kind of get away from things, to feel good or get away from our problems. It's not about getting away from ourselves so much or getting away from external things, just to find a little bit of peace. Certainly, we do want to find a peaceful, a sort of quiet place to meditate, but it's not just about getting away from others and getting a little bit of peace, finding a little bit temporary peace. There's a longer term motivation that we want to implement and develop into our practice certainly as we go through these different modules, and hopefully touch upon as we do this course, what we're trying to do is deepening our understanding and motivation for our meditation practice. So ideally, we're trying to move away from this kind of temporary initial feeling of, I just want to meditate to find a little bit of peace. That's kind of a little bit more self-focused. In this Mahayana tradition, the great vehicle of Buddhism, we want to bring in a bit of a bigger and broader motivation, again, that I mentioned before, that encompasses living beings, our ability to benefit in the world more and more. So another misconception about meditation is that it's simply trying to empty the mind of thoughts. Now, there are types of meditation where we try to, certainly in meditation, we want to try and get on top of our thoughts, not be controlled by kind of crazy thinking or just random thinking or thoughts, sort of more neurotic thoughts about the past and the future. We don't want to get caught and wound up in them on a daily basis. But it's not about getting rid of thoughts or emptying the mind of thoughts. That's not the type of meditations that we're going to be looking at in this module. There are meditations where we try to take a step back and maybe look at the nature of thought, look at the space between thoughts in order to get into develop our wisdom on the nature and thoughts and phenomena. But the goal isn't to empty the mind of thoughts. And actually, there's some types of meditations that we will also do, and I think you did with Venerable Yonten, where we use our thoughts to change our mind, to develop our mind. We utilize them, we look at thoughts as something good and positive, but we try to take hold of our thoughts and bring them, use them for a certain purpose to develop positive states of mind and reduce negative states of mind. So another misconception about meditation, or something that can happen if we meditate, we can all fall into this kind of routine, meditation becoming like a routine, just as it is when you go to the gym. When we first go, it's all very exciting and we feel better and but after some time, it can become a bit boring, bit mindless, oh, I've got to go and do my practice now, And so, and also we can sort of, behind that is a kind of boredom or a kind of lack of inspiration, And what happens with that when it becomes a mindless routine, we can sort of really lose our motivating factor. And again, the motivating factor in this is to really develop our mind to benefit others, and develop our mind to get out of our own suffering. Those two are going hand in hand when we practice in this tradition. So what we don't want to do is try and just become this routine where we're just getting up in the morning to watch our breath and do a couple of prayers, and it just becomes something sort of boring, and the motivation becomes a bit lost. So another misconception about meditation is that we try to do something, use meditation to get a sort of, I don't know, mystical out-of-body experiences, or to be able to dream, lucid dreaming, or to try to be able to fly in our dreams, kind of utilizing meditation, again, more for our own benefit, to get these kind of states of mind that we almost want to get away. It's a state of mind that's bringing us out of reality. It's not connecting with our reality, but it's bringing us further away from the nature of reality. What we're trying to do is develop our wisdom so we can see reality, we can see the nature of self, we can see the nature of others. That's one aspect of meditation. So when we do meditations where we're trying to get out of body experiences or develop lucid dreaming or any kind of other supernormal power, we're losing the point of the meditation. We're losing the purpose of meditation. There's not any long-term benefit to that. It doesn't mean that in meditation we won't have unusual experiences. We won't experience some sort of joy or bliss or happiness, or maybe see, a deity, or, have some, that's fine, there can be some good signs, But the main point of the meditation is to reduce negative states of mind and develop positive states of mind, So this is what we're really trying to do in our meditation practice. Other nice experiences are just a nice byproduct to that. Maybe they just show that we're going in the right direction. So one other sort of misconception or goal that we don't want to aim, is to use meditation to gain reputation. So I just saw this, this made me laugh. I saw this on, somebody posted on Facebook. Some of you might have seen it already. I'm maybe a bit old-fashioned and it's really old, but this made me laugh. This little joke. So this is what we don't want to be doing in meditation. So for example, I'm in the Gompa and I'm meditating, and look at me, when somebody's watching, we want to be showing that we're doing some meditation, and then when they're not watching, we're on our phone or watching TV or whatever like that. So we would say that's kind of, we're using meditation just to sort of have a good reputation, for somebody to think, wow, they're great, they're a meditator, wow, what are they doing? Maybe to look mystical or something, So we don't want to use meditation for that purpose. And so actually, to really kind of, reputation is one of the hardest things. They say, as a meditator, it's actually one of the hardest things to be able to overcome, what people think about us. So even for meditators who go off like this into caves, they say that there's 3 things that are the most difficult to overcome. Certainly as you become more serious about your meditation practice and you want to sort of develop more of these qualities of what we call renunciation and bodhicitta and emptiness that you're going to hear about more as you go through the different modules. So there's 3 things that are, in sort of this order, that are the most difficult to let go of in terms of spiritual practice. Now, the first one that's difficult to go is to go without food. The next one that's more difficult to go with is clothing. As a meditator. So even now we have a meditation retreat coming up at Vajrapani called Noongne. Susie and I all the staff have been asking about it here. Noongne, that's a Tibetan word, and it basically means a fasting retreat. So a lot of people are quite scared to do that retreat because it's a 2-day retreat where each Noongne involves 2 days. And for the first day, one eats, we eat and drink and we do different types of meditations and practices. And for the second day, there's no eating and drinking at all. And you still do lots and lots of meditation. So a lot of the staff here have been asking questions about this noonday retreat because they just can't wrap their head around that you might not be drinking for something like a day and a half, 26 hours. Because for us, to do spiritual practice and not eat or drink is quite difficult, yeah? To really reduce our food and especially not to drink. So for practice, as meditators who go off into these kind of more isolated places, they say that one of the most difficult things is to be difficult to reduce our food intake because we have a lot of attachment to food. But what we have even more attachment to is dealing with extremities or heat or cold. So even though food's difficult, but if we go off into more isolated places to meditate or whatever, then they say for the great meditators, dealing with extremities of heat and cold are also very difficult to deal with. But the most difficult one to overcome for any meditator, like we can see here, is our attachment to reputation, what people think about us. So again, if you really think, or if you look day to day, I would say for sure that would be my case. If we look day to day, what can often disturb our mind a lot is what people think about us. Our attachment to reputation. So it's just something to discover, to think about and look, So certainly on a gross level, what we're looking at now is just generally not doing meditation to have a reputation with your friends, your partner, your family, but trying to develop a sincere motivation to work on our minds, to use meditation to reduce our afflictions, to reduce the problems and challenges in our mind, and to slowly develop this potential we have for everlasting peace and happiness. So here, some of these quotes also come from Venerable Sangye Kadro's book, Kathleen MacDonald. So it's another one that we recommend for this module, How to Meditate. So if we are really looking at developing or improving our meditation practice, it's a very wonderful book. That one, you have to purchase that one. You can purchase it on Amazon or, you look online, there's different places you can buy it. But it's a very wonderful book and gives many of these reasons of how you meditate, why you meditate, aim of meditation, and also gives different, very nice set out structured types of meditation that you can start right away from in home. And some of these we will share and do during this class. So the real purpose of the goal of meditation isn't just to feel good and relax, but to look at our mind. Again, to be like a scientist, like an investigator, to be curious about what's coming up in our mind, develop that curiosity. Not a sort of judgmentalness about ourselves, which as Westerners is difficult because we very much fall into that. But gradually in our meditation to be able to find space in our mind so we can see what's coming up and use meditation tools, not just on the cushion, but in our daily life. What we bring on the cushion, we want to bring into our daily life to work on our stuff. When strong attachment, anger's coming up, what we meditated on the cushion, we try and bring that and use that and be mindful of that in our daily life. So again, it's about constantly, we need to become a bit of a spy, or we could say a good friend, watching, caring for our mind, looking at our mind all the time, seeing what's coming up and trying to, on a daily basis, take care of the difficult stuff that's coming up through meditation and mindfulness in our day-to-day life. What His Holiness is touching on here is, again, what we learned in meditation, the first module, that as we gradually develop and deepen in our meditation, we start to touch that part of ourselves, our Buddha nature, that is in the nature of peace. That peace, that potential for peace and happiness that does exist within us all. So what you learned in the first module, or if you weren't there, but some of you might have heard already, again, whether we're a beginner Buddhist, we're a long-term Buddhist, we need to encourage ourselves and remember that states of mind, agitated states of mind like anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, they're advantageous. They're temporary states of mind. They're like clouds on the sky. Our Buddha nature is like the sky. It has this potential to be clear, all-encompassing. And the afflictive states of mind like anger and attachment are simply like clouds that cover the sky, or like dust on the mirror. Again, our mind is, the potential of our mind is like a mirror that it can reflect and see the nature of ourselves and all phenomena, but it's temporarily covered by dirt. And the dirt is our delusions. So meditation is the gradual sweeping and removal of the delusions for the mind. So goal of meditation. The goals of meditation so the Lamrim, which means the gradual path to enlightenment, is what we are studying in the next 12 modules or so that we are going to study over discovering Buddhism. So again, whether we're new or beginners, or whether we're more advanced students, the Lamrim is something that we just continually listen to, reflect on, and meditate. It's the gradual path to enlightenment. It's the gradual path to awakening. And this is what the goal of our meditation is transforming our mind into this path to enlightenment, transforming our motivation, our life into the path, the spiritual path, the gradual path to enlightenment. So the first level of the path, there's 3 goals according to the Lamrim, you know. So again, what is it we want? Every living being wants happiness. Nobody wants to suffer. Neither myself nor any living being wants suffering. Every living being wants happiness. There's no doubt about that. But generally what we do, generally in Western society, you know, we feel the goal of happiness is just to achieve, you know, obviously have a partner, have a good job, have a certain amount of material happiness in our lives, and then maybe some kind of inner spiritual peace, you know, a restful life, you know, a peaceful life where we have material comfort, you know, and a good partner, good friends. And, you know, that's good, but everybody should have that. Everyone deserves that. But what we're saying in this Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, what we're saying in the gradual path to enlightenment is that we can transform our hearts and minds into much more than that. We can achieve even higher levels of happiness. Because even though some of us may have, you know, a nice house, a relatively nice partner or husband, and we have good friends, but still we're here today because we haven't achieved everlasting peace and happiness. There's something still missing. We have a sensitivity to that. So what the Lamrim produces within us as we meditate and listen and reflect and meditate in that, is the happiness that extends beyond this life to future lives. That's something we can develop with our minds, with our hearts, with our Buddha nature. What we can also develop is the happiness of liberation. What that is freedom from the main delusions afflicting our mind right now. Attachment, anger, and also ignorance, this wrong view of self. So again, we're going to go too much into detail with these right now, because as we move through the different modules, you'll begin to learn what we mean more by happiness of future lives. What's that goal? What does that look like? How do I achieve that? Why do I want to achieve that? Why do I want to achieve liberation? What really is that? And also, why do I want to achieve enlightenment? And what really is that? And what do I have to create in my mind, in my heart, and my being to achieve that? And is that possible for me? But generally through our meditation and our practice, these are the goals that we're aiming for. These are the 3 different types of spiritual happiness that we want to move into in our spiritual path. And they all come around through a listening to teachings, reflecting on them, and meditation. So in this capacity, this is where meditation comes in. After listening to teachings, again, I'll go into this a little bit more next week, these 3 parts that we need in our spiritual practice. These are like 3 ingredients that we need to kind of use consistently in our meditation practice, in our spiritual practice. Just meditating alone won't bring about a lot of inner development if we don't know what to meditate on and we don't really think more deeply about why we're meditating. So these 3 we have to use all the time. These are the 3 main ingredients. This is the main structure that we need to integrate into our spiritual path, our spiritual development, a system of listening to teachings, as we're doing now, reflecting on them. We can either reflect when we're listening, we should reflect when we're listening, but also through reading, through contemplation as we go around our day, using a topic and thinking about it throughout our day. And then finally through a sort of deeper level of meditation, bringing it more deeply into the heart and mind. So again, Lama Yeshe, very lovely way of expressing the Mahayana motivation, the great vehicle. There's different vehicles in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, or in the Buddhist tradition. The Buddha taught 3 vehicles of teachings. The Hinayana or Theravadan teaching, so the main motivation in the Theravadan system of teaching is to achieve what we call self-liberation. Liberation for oneself from the cycle of birth and death. The cycle of reincarnation, being born again and again into suffering. So in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, what we study is the Mahayana motivation. What we develop is the Mahayana motivation, where on top of being able to recognize and gradually eliminate our own levels of dissatisfaction in the mind, our own levels of suffering, we develop this broad motivation to want to benefit others. Once we free ourselves from suffering, we want to take this kind of sort of courageous motivation to want to help others, to really benefit others. So that takes a particular type of training to be able to do that, what we call training in the 6 perfections. But generally speaking, when we start any motivation, we try to at least touch upon this Mahayana motivation, this greater motivation, that whatever we're doing, whether we're meditating, whether we're working, whether we're, whatever we're doing in our daily life, to try and imbue it with this motivation of bodhicitta, that our actions of body, speech, and mind benefit others. As Lama says, if you meditate or do anything with that kind of mind, your mind slips into that vehicle. And eventually, that gets you to enlightenment. Because that's our goal. Our goal here is enlightenment. Not simply self-liberation, but to enlighten ourselves and all beings. So again, from How to Meditate by Kathleen MacDonald, just another small quote. So by practicing these methods, meditation, we can learn to be happy at any time, in any situation, even difficult and painful ones. So it's definitely possible. We can free ourselves, as I said, our delusions, our afflictions, our challenges in the mind are not one with the mind. They're like dust on the mirror, cloud on the sky. So we have the potential to completely liberate ourselves from dissatisfaction, anger, anxiety. And the main way that we completely liberate the mind from any type of problem whatsoever is by realizing emptiness, by realizing how things exist, by overcoming the distorted view of how we see ourselves. So this is the main antidote to delusions, the wisdom realizing emptiness. So again, we're not going to do as much on that topic in this module. That comes around about module 9 or 10, but we'll probably we'll touch on it in each module, but we'll get a deeper understanding of emptiness and how things exist. Starting to look into the way things exist as we move into the later modules, because these are a little bit more challenging teachings to really get deep into the nature of mind and consciousness, and how it's not that we don't exist at all, but the fundamental cause of all our challenges and problems and suffering in the mind, dissatisfaction, is because we have a wrong way or a distorted way of how we view ourselves. We view ourselves as existing in a sort of solid, independent way. But what the Buddha taught is that it's not that we don't exist, but because we have this distorted view of how we exist, all these other different problems and challenges come up in the mind. Anger, attachment, pride, they all come from perceiving an independent, self-existent view of self, which is mistaken. So again, even that nature in mind, that kind of view of emptiness, even if we can't get to the view of this life, but even being able to taste a little bit through our meditation that how we perceive ourselves a little bit mistaken brings incredible peace and happiness, each time we touch on these different points of the practice. So yeah, the ultimate goal of our meditation is actually to realize how things exist, how I exist and how phenomena exist. That's our ultimate goal. But in the meantime, the temporary goals until we reach that state are dealing, as I said, with our more grosser levels of mind, like anger, attachment, fear. We need to work on the heavier things first. Then when we start sifting away at those, then we're able to go a little bit deeper and start to see, wow, well, how do I exist if I don't exist like this, So it can get quite exciting. We want our meditation to be exciting. We have to develop a love or an enjoyment for our meditation, not just kind of a banal routine, like, oh, I better go meditate kind of thing, Eventually, we want to develop a meditation that really inspires us, that it gives us energy and joy and happiness. That might take some time, but if we enjoy our meditation, we enjoy sitting, doing our practice, then it's easy, we go there easily. So again, hopefully in this module, we can go into ways where you get more inspiration to meditate. You develop a sort of routine or structure where you're able to easily get into a meditation practice for the day, because that can be the hurdle, is how do I get started? And how long do I do? And how can I keep going with it? All these things, it's not easy. Yeah. I know it's not easy. I was very fortunate because I mean, for Westerners, it's not easy to start a meditation practice. Ideally, it's better if you meditate in a group. If you have a group practice that you join in on and you get good at that and you start to enjoy that, and then slowly maybe you're able to do some practice at home if you're struggling with doing that. So I'm going to finish there. We'll go into some, because we're already on, well, I'm going to finish with blah, blah, blah. Because what time? It's already, what time are we on? I can't see. 8:10. So first of all, do we have any questions or comments about what was discussing so far? Don't be shy. Doesn't matter what it is. Chats. Would that be in the chat?
Oh.
No?
Hi, Angie. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, yes.
It's Isabella here. Maybe if you're finished using the screen share, it might be easier to see the people that are raising their hands.
Good idea. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me going. Yes, that's much better. So I think Joe from Scotland.
Yes, yes.
He's
It's
already
20
Joe's
past
always
4,
got a
Angie.
question.
I have. Well, it's a comment really.
Okay.
It's about motivation for learning to meditate, and about, you know, as you say, talking about creating a daily practice.
Yes.
And I put two things together for myself. I've suddenly found myself over the past few months engaging with lots of people in a very intense way, which is completely outside my comfort zone. So I know that we're part of a movement with a shared goal, and I know that the way we approach it, the way I approach it, will determine the success or not of the goal. So it's very stressful. I'm most comfortable in a one-to-one. So it's just dawned on me when I need to once I know how to meditate, when I need to do it. It's just before I'm about to engage in, with a group of people, because
Yes.
I want to be able to present the best, the kindest, the most open, compassionate part of my, of myself. So for me, it's just clicked,
Okay, good.
when I know I know that I need to be the best person I can be, but it's just clicked when I need to, when I'm about to have a meeting, or
Yes.
or we're working on something that lots of people have, different ideas and stuff. So thank you. I've just yeah,
Good.
I've
Good.
just yeah.
What I wanted to say to that, Joe, is another, another analogy or that we use often for meditation is, before anybody goes into the battlefield, which is the battlefield of your life,
It's
the
other
battlefield
people. If they weren't there, I'd be fine.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
I'm joking.
So basically, another analogy for meditation is it's a bit like training, boot camp, I mean, I don't like to use too much the word boot camp because it sounds like you have to be really serious and you have to sit and meditate. But basically, it's like before we go into war, which is the battle with daily life, where our afflictions come up when we're with people, when we're in certain situations, we need to prepare, as you say, we need to prepare before. So meditation is a preparation for our life, a preparation so that we are more kind, we are more present. On that basic level, for sure, we need that. And then, of course, there's a deeper level of really transforming our mind into the stages of the path, developing these deeper levels of wisdom and universal responsibility to benefit others. But on a basic day-to-day level, never mind enlightenment and, all these grand goals, we need to be able to just be present and be kind with others. So, and there's times when we can't be, even though we're the kindest person, there's always a difficult person. There's always a challenging moment, So meditation is like training so that we go into these type places and be in these environments and be with people. So we're there, we're a good human being. And I think we all want to be that. But there's a struggle, there's an internal struggle. So that's why we need meditation, meditation protects our mind from delusion, protects our mind from negativity. Now, we're not going to just be able to do a meditation 1, 2, 3 times and all of a sudden we're a great person. We're all of a sudden really kind, all of a sudden really present. I mean, meditation needs to be a life practice. This is the view we need to have of it being a life practice and slowly developing, nurturing in that practice, in a way where we can, that's reasonable for us.
And very lastly, just protecting other people from ourselves, from our own
Absolutely.
delusions.
Absolutely, yes, that's a very good motivation. Yes. I mean, one of the basic tenets of Buddhism, is not to harm others, So if we cannot harm with our body, most of us are okay with that. I don't think most of us are hitting and beating people. I'm imagining because we're all at this class, so we've got beyond that level of harming others. But with our speech and our mind, it's more difficult, It's not easy to tame our speech and mind. You know, to not say nice things when it's really on the edge of your tongue, you know, to say something nasty or something divisive or harsh. It's difficult. But even harder is to tame the thoughts, you know. What are we thinking about? I mean, we don't think people can see it. Sometimes people are very sensitive to what we're thinking, though. But so what we're trying to do in meditation is to tame body, yes, we're better at that. But speech and mind, those doors, those avenues are not easy, you know. So this is what we're working on in our meditation. As you say, never mind benefit and just trying at least not to harm in certain situations. Okay, Danath, you raised your hand?
Beautiful, Angie?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I got really inspired when you talked about meditation should be enjoyable and exciting, because that's not what I'm feeling. It really is. I have to work to get myself there, and I do
Yes.
feel comfortable and better, but it's not enjoyable and exciting. So I'm just wondering, oh, how do I get there?
How do you get there yet? Well, you know, we try. I'm not saying it's enjoyable right from the very beginning. I mean, I remember, I don't know, I was like at least 10 years into my practice, 10 years into, you know, trying to practice and meditate and all these things. But I mean, I know these sound like a lot of years, but you know, even after 20 years, you still feel like you're a baby, you know, you still have stuff, but there is a development in my mind, you know. So anyway, I've got two stories then we should one was when I was, I mean, not to get people disheartened by any means, but when I was very new again in India, I remember I was very fortunate to have 3 years in India and Nepal, in which time I became a nun. So I was able to spend a bit more intense period trying to develop my meditation practice because I wasn't working or anything. So that gave me a lot of freedom to develop some sort of regular practice. And I mean, at that time, I was doing quite a lot of purification practices. So I went to a teaching with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. This was about maybe 97, 98. And, you know, I was so excited about enlightenment and liberation. I was really going for it. I was doing this prostration practice, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche had given me these practices to do. So I was very excited to do it. And I was like, liberation and enlightenment. I was all, you know, going for that. Then I went to a teaching with His Holiness, and he said, I mean, I don't remember anything else about the teaching. And I don't even know how many of the teachings I remember His Holiness, but I always remember this because I was like, really? His Holiness said, well, after 10 years of doing a practice, if doing a regular practice, if you feel that after that time you have a little bit less anger, that's very good. Keep going. And I was like, a little bit less anger? I says, well, I'm going to be halfway to enlightenment in 10 years, am I not? You know, I mean, I had a little bit over expectation. However, I have to say that, you know, after engaging in, you know, my regular practice and doing some certain retreats, I do feel, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche said to me also in those early years, you know, I had to work on my anger. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm completely free anger, but I would say it's diminished. It's better. And it's amazing if you have these small achievements in the mind, how big it feels. So it might be small achievement, but you actually feel lighter. You know, you feel better. And you feel like, okay, the practice is working. Yeah, it took 10 years. And it's not just that it's only less anger. I mean, maybe I had some other experiences or whatever, you know, I'm not enlightened. But generally speaking, in terms of the weight of that delusion, it did feel a bit lighter in my mind. And I'm not meaning to be proudful or anything. It's just to give inspiration and share that just with small experiences, it's amazing how big an impact it can have on your mind and how much more peace you feel in your mind. So anyway, Danath, yeah, I mean, and the other story along the lines of what you were saying was another time when I was at a teaching with Yangtze Rinpoche. Some of you might know Yangtze Rinpoche. He's the resident teacher. He's the main teacher, the president of a college that we have in Portland. He comes from time to time to this area to teach. And he said, one time he said, you know, it's important to be able to enjoy your practice. And I hadn't really thought about it before. I hadn't heard that before. And I sort of questioned it and I thought, well, do I enjoy my practice? And I thought, well, I must do after so many years of doing it. There has to be a level of enjoyment or satisfaction or feel like you're getting somewhere. Otherwise, I still wouldn't be doing it, you know. So So I think it's important to have some level of feeling like, you know, it's satisfying or it's nourishing or nurturing. You know, one must get to that place. And it might not happen right away. I mean, like we start any discipline in life, doesn't it take about 30 days to develop a habit? But somehow it takes only a few days to drop it, you know. It takes a good month to start it, but if you stop doing it for 2 or 3 days, you drop it really fast, you know, isn't it? So it's yeah, you know, either way, but it definitely takes a good 30 days to kind of get some habit going. But I know myself, I would be scared if I lost my meditation habit. I'd feel there's a big loss in my life. And so yeah, anyway, hopefully we can. What time are we on now? I'm aware that we're going on a bit longer. So what we might do, because it's 20 past, is anyone any more questions or comments?
Yes, we have one more question in the chat.
Okay. Let's do the one more question, and then we're going to finish with dedication. And what we'll do with the meditation I was going to do this week, because that's what I wanted to move into, was starting the meditation at the beginning of the class, because I think we might be a bit fresher at the beginning of the class. Certainly, I know as we get into the evening, we can lose our freshness in mind. So we will start next week with, you know, about 20 minutes or so of meditation. So what's the last question?
Last question was just the title of the recommended book and just referencing that title again.
Let me screen share, because I have them so you can maybe write down or see. So let me just bring that up. I have it towards the end. I didn't get through the whole show tonight, but slideshow, but we will. So here are the books. As I say, fortunately now we can download Freedom Through Understanding. So you have the PDF. So I would really recommend to at least start on the first chapter if you have time this week. And if you are interested to buy How to Meditate, I would definitely recommend that. It's a really wonderful book, giving the different types of meditation that we're going to go through. Because in this tradition, I mean, I know it sounds overwhelming now, but there's more than one type of meditation because they each deal with different things. It's like different types of medication. You know, they go to the doctor and there's not one medicine for all, you know, for our body. There's different types of medicine because we all, you know, in reality, all our minds have different levels of delusion and potential. Yes, we all have the potential for enlightenment, but how that manifests, how that comes around is a little bit different for all of us. And that's why the Buddha actually taught 84,000 sets of teachings, because there's a variety of different beings. We have a variety of different needs. So we're not going to go into 84,000 sets of teachings in this module, but we are going to touch on the 3 main types of meditation: stabilizing or concentration meditation. That's one type. Then there's the analytical type of meditation, which again, I think you did do 2 or 3, for those of you who did Discovering Buddhism Module 1. I believe you did some meditation with Venerable Yonten. That's right, yeah? Can I get a nod or a shake or something from anyone who did the module? Shakes, nods. Yes. Yeah, thanks, Ladin. Is it Ladin? Ladin, yeah, okay. So yeah, we will, you know, so I think you did some kind of analytical meditation already, but these are very, very important in this tradition. Taking a topic and analysing it, thinking about it, just as we do, I mean, as I say, we analyse things on a daily basis. But here we're taking a topic, one particular topic, and analysing it, contemplating it, chewing on it in our meditation to try and kind of bring that topic, that feeling, that experience of that topic into our heart, into our life. Then the other type of meditation is a little bit more devotional, using mantra and using a deity practice, you know, a deity or a Buddha who embodies all the qualities that we want to develop in our heart and mind. So these are particular to, as I said, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we have the Mahayana. We're studying the Mahayana tradition of teachings, the great vehicle, trying to awaken this mind of bodhicitta, you know, this mind that wants to benefit all beings, not just bring our own self to liberation and freedom from suffering. So on top of that, with that mind, we often engage in these practices in mantra, using mantra from the Vajrayana or the tantric teachings to develop kind of more succinct, a more specific experience of this combination of emptiness and compassion in our mind. It can be a quicker approach to awakening the qualities that are already embodied in the Buddha within ourselves, but drawing that forth, that quality, that Buddha, that awakened being, into our heart and mind through mantra and meditation. Or sorry, what we call more devotional practices. So we're going to, do each of these types of meditation in these modules and during the practice day. So I know for some of you, you might not be comfortable asking a question during the class. So if you do have any questions that you want to ask in the next 4 or 5 weeks, I don't mind if you want to email me. So maybe you can ask Isabella if you have a question. She can say, Isabella, you're okay to share my email if anybody would like. If they have a question, just get in touch with Isabella and I can answer your question. Because I know in this capacity with, quite a few participants, it can be quite hard to get questions in as well. And maybe some of you don't like asking, in the class context. If that you're not comfortable, then I don't mind answering over email. So generally what we do in this tradition as well is we usually finish with dedication prayers. So as if some of you start to engage more in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, practice more, and some of you already have been for some years, some of you are just getting started, some of you are really, really new perhaps. So what's quite nice to do is we always do these dedication prayers. So in our meditation practice, what's very important is to have a motivation. When we listen to teachings, we reflect, we meditate, and a meditation for life, a motivation for life. And also at the end of the day, or at the end of our practice at least, is to dedicate. So today I'm going to do the prayers in English, but sometimes we'll do in Tibetan, because if you attend Tibetan Buddhist teachings with a Lama, or even sometimes Western teachers, we often do these chants in Tibetan, so then, if you do go to a teaching with a Tibetan Lama, you'll go, oh, I know these prayers, I'm familiar with them, because we did them in the Discovering Buddhism classes. You get to learn them, you get to learn the chants. But today we'll do in English, so we know what we're saying. But over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll start to do sometimes in Tibetan as well. So let's just take a moment to dedicate, taking a moment just to feel, rejoice how wonderful it is. We've been able to listen together, reflect together, think about meditation, how important it's going to be in my life, in our lives. Maybe make some conviction, that I really want to develop a meditation practice in my life. Remembering about the benefits, it's so important, for our own temporary happiness, as Joe says, for others around us. So many people I know, who are in partnerships, relationships, they often say, in the beginning, their partners didn't really want to accept their Buddhist practice, their meditation practice, but as they saw them develop, as they saw that their meditation practice helped them, then their partners were more than happy for them to go to classes and develop meditation, because they could see there was a shift and a positive change in the relationship with each other. So yeah, that's what we really want, is to really develop this heart and mind that doesn't harm, and gradually benefits more and more. And so we just seal all the positive energy of the class with these dedications. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. And for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's the upholder of this tradition, for the world, the upholder of the Buddhist teachings. And not really just the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, but he's inspired so many other Buddhist traditions and other spiritual traditions. So it's always very important to dedicate for the long lives of His Holiness and other spiritual teachers, Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll see you next week, hopefully. And again, if you have any, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabella.
Thank you, Isabella. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just having a quick look at all the faces before you go. Thank you so much. Enjoy your week.
Thanks.
And
Bye-bye.
next week we do meditation. Then the week after that, you'll need to do the meditation during the week. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.